Hi, I'm Jarrod Cooper. I want to invite you on a journey. It's a journey that has already been transforming my life and my leadership. And the journey I want to invite you on is to look into a book called Good to Great by a guy called Jim Collins. Some years ago, I was getting stuck in church ministry. The church that I was leading was no longer growing. We'd really plateaued. We were a bit stuck and we were in a bit of an unhealthy place, and I didn't know what to do. My background is I love ministry. I love preaching. I love prophesying. I love church services. I love those parts, as it were, of the things of God and of ministry. And whatever I did, I just couldn't get this thing to be any healthier or to begin to grow again. We were stuck. More to the point, here's the truth. I was stuck. I topped out doing the things that I loved and the things that I already knew that I was good at. And so my solution to every problem was to do the things that I knew, even harder, louder, or better. But nothing was working. And then with the advice of a few good friends and some great pastors and some guys ahead of me, I came across this book. And in studying it and in getting good advice from experienced leaders, I got unstuck and learned to move again. And the core of my problem was this. I didn't realize that ministry and leadership were two very different things. Ministry, preaching, teaching, prophesying, counseling, pastoring, they're great things to do, and it's what we usually join the ministry for, that and our love for God. But actually, when the Bible talks about governing diligently in Romans 12, I didn't understand the gift of leadership and the wisdom of leadership and how it was subtly different to preaching and teaching and prophesying. There is a whole world of good leadership, understanding group dynamics, how people sew together, what motivates an entire group and keeps them together. I didn't understand stuff like that. How to develop a culture, how to develop succession, how to delegate really well and make sure that things got done. That wasn't my world. And in fact, if I'm honest, I was pretty intimidated by it. But over time, I learned to differentiate ministry and my love for it and the fact that I kind of excelled more in that direction from leadership and how I needed to grow in leadership. Effectively, God was kind of looking at me going, Jarrod, let me tell you what your problem is. You're a lovely minister, well done, but you're a lousy leader. Here's how we can develop it. And I began to saturate myself in good, godly, biblical leadership thinking. And that transformed my life and enabled the church to grow again, as I realized as groups get bigger, they become more complex to lead. So I had to become better at leadership. And so I'm inviting you on a journey as we go through this book that has transformed my life, and I think it could transform yours and your leadership team. And the concept is quite simply this. How do we go from good to great? Actually, the book begins by saying good is the enemy of great. It's so easy, isn't it, to become just kind of, well, we're good. We're good enough at what we do. We've got a decent church. We've got a church that gently grows and there's nice church services and we're kind of making a bit of a difference. We're good enough. When actually the potential to be great and to absolutely transform the sphere in the world that God has given us to touch is there waiting for us if we'll say, you know what? I don't just want to be good. I want to be everything that I could be in God. So I'm going to take on a whole new area of learning in my life. That's what I did through this book and through the advice of a few good friends. In the book, Good to Great, Jim Collins and his team study some of the top organizations in the world, enduring, successful organizations, to find out what makes them tick, what makes them uniquely good and great and uniquely enduring. And some of the things that he discovers are really quite remarkable. Let me tell you some. Here's some of the findings that they found. For instance, a great enduring company isn't necessarily led by, it says here, larger than life celebrity leaders. Those great big extrovert characters were not the leaders of the very best companies. Let that encourage you as a church. You don't have to be great, big, successful, a huge character to have a great church. It says this as well. Strategy per se did not separate the good to great companies from the comparison companies. Both sets of companies had well-defined strategies, and there's no evidence that the good to great companies spent more time on long-range strategic planning than the comparison companies. In other words, strategy alone isn't going to do it. You can have a good strategy. That won't make you great. There's other things like this. The good to great companies did not focus principally on what to do to become great. They focused equally on what not to do and what to stop doing. Learning what to stop doing is huge for pastors. What are the things that, well, we kind of busy ourselves, but they don't really matter. The effect is not big enough. There are a few key things we need to focus on, and we're going to learn what they are as we go through this book summary together in the Tribe Zone. Another little point here, mergers and acquisitions, so in our case that would relate to church mergers, play virtually no role in igniting a transformation from good to great. Listen to this. Two big mediocrities joined together never make one great company. Wow. Two mediocrities won't solve your problem when they come together. We need to discover what greatness is again. The good to great companies, it said, paid little attention to managing change. That's unusual, isn't it? Motivating people or creating alignment. Under the right conditions, the problems of commitment, alignment, motivation, and change largely melt away. So my question is, so what are those ideal conditions? That means we're not motivating volunteers every 2 minutes, but largely the team becomes self-motivating because the conditions are right. That's an issue of leadership. Preachers will try and motivate with more preaching, but if the conditions are right, come on, you know it, your best teams need very little managing and motivating. It's all in there already. So how do we develop that? It said the good to great companies had no name, tagline, launch event or program to signify their transformations. Indeed, some reported being unaware of the magnitude of the transformation at the time in the company. Only later, in retrospect, did it become clear. Yes, they produced a truly revolutionary leap in results, but not by a revolutionary process. We think that we need revolution to leap from where we are to where we wish we were. But actually, when you go through the book, you realize there's another way that great organizations behave. And if we can learn that, then we can begin to move forward towards greatness. And finally, it says this: the good to great companies were not, by and large, in great industries, and some of them were in terrible industries. In no case do we have a company that just happened to be sitting on the nose cone of a rocket when it took off. Greatness, this is a great line now, greatness is not a function of circumstance. Greatness, it turns out, is largely a matter of conscious choice. There are behavioral, cultural things that we can put in place that help our organizations, so in our context usually churches, to become great. Now I want to take you through the book outlining 6 or 7 major concepts that they found to be the things in all great enduring companies and the way that all great enduring leaders lead. Let's go through them together and let's find out how to move from merely good, or even just okay, let's be honest sometimes, to being great. Let's learn how to add skillful governing, skillful leadership to ministry so that our churches and influence can grow for the kingdom of God to increase and impact the world in which we live. That's the introduction. Let's get into the first chapter of Good to Great.